Hello, everyone. This is Daniel Elijah with Under Spiritual Attack Testimonies. And, I kind of covered what testimony is, why testimony, what's so important about testimony, what the most important testimony is. And I kind of got into my ages of 10 through 14, how I was raised into the musical aspect. But I really feel like I need to get deeper into my younger ages. So I'm going to do ages 2 through 9 leading into where I was. So I can remember pretty far back. I was able to remember when I was 2 years old, and just pretty clear memories before I moved to Las Vegas, before my little brother was born. I remember living in Vegas for a short period of time. Some of my earliest photos show me repping the Colorado hat, so you'll see me rocking a Colorado hat every once in a while just because I am where I'm from, like, I'm not who I am because of where I'm from, but where I'm from is important to me, and I believe the environment that we grow up in has everything to do with who we become through our actions, because our environment affects our actions. I had a conversation with some of my friends the other day regarding the adapting organism. I pretty much broke down that what they quantify as evolution is life, it is growth, it is adapting to your environment, and we've been doing this since before written history. So I'm going to get a little into my history. So when I was 2, I remember very clearly having discussions with my mom and doing things with my aunt and my mom, hanging out with my brother. Some of my earliest memories are me getting popped in the nose by my older brother. And also stealing. I remember very cognitively stealing from my dad when I was 3, after we had moved back from Vegas. He used to keep a little orange jar they'd keep change in, and I stole 50 cents, and I got my butt whooped, and rightfully so. Shouldn't have been stealing. But I think this leads to the idea that we are born into sin, no matter what age. We have a want, despite what we know the utilization for is. We want something, and most of the time we're willing to obtain it at any cost, despite who we hurt, or without thought of who we hurt or who we affect. Now, I got bullied a lot as a kid because of where I grew up. I had a friend when I was 4 and 5 years old who used to beat me up, and I still cared for him, still wanted to hang out with him. Him and I hung out later on in life as well. But, I know that the reason why he beat up on me was because he didn't have a solid father figure in his life. And I'm blessed to have that discipline from my dad. He definitely struck the fear of God into me in many ways, even before I knew who God was. Now, when I was growing up, like, one of my favorite bands when I was 2 was Whiteheart. I had a lot of favorite songs growing up. I'd sing to people and had a great sense of retention. So there was one event when I was 3. We went to a King Soopers, and my mom had, I'm not sure if Gerald was born yet. If he was born, he was maybe a newborn. But we were at a King Soopers. My mom was about to check out and purchase her items. And I started freaking out. And she tries to settle me down, bring me by the gumball machines, have me sit down by the horse where you pay a penny and you ride along on it. And I'm just screaming, she's evil, she's evil, she's evil. My mom's like, who's evil? You're freaking out. I don't get it. And she returns to the cashier and notices that the cashier has an upside down cross that she's wearing. And so I guess I always felt the spiritual attack in life. I always felt the enemy and the war between good and evil. And I knew the difference at such a young age. Even though I was born into the sin condition, I was able to see things other people couldn't. So, as I got older, hung out with this kid who used to beat up on me, and my dad started putting me through martial arts training. And he'd been teaching me how to punch things since I was like 3 years old. He even caught a black eye from me when I was 3, and he was so proud. Because he was a fighter, he was a boxer, he enjoyed fighting at that point in time in his life. Now, I didn't realize that this training would affect my attitude for the rest of my life. That learning how to punch someone led me to embracing aggression and embracing not turning the other cheek, but fighting my neighbor. And it led to many cussing battles, even at as young age as 5, when I knew how to cuss somebody out. And kindergarten. I didn't get suspended from kindergarten. I got suspended from the bus, but I remember that friend who used to bully me, he just turned around. He was sitting diagonally on the bus, one seat in front of me. I'm on the left side, he's on the right side. And he just looked over and said something. And it was rude. And I just popped him in the nose. And this led to me having a lot of aggression, having a lot of lack of acceptance in my life. I remember being depressed at 5 years old. I went to one of my buddies' birthday parties, and I just sat and cried because I really didn't know anybody there. I felt completely uncomfortable. The only person I knew was the kid who was having the birthday, and it was very strange to me. And maybe it was just me being selfish and wanting to spend time with my friend and realizing that there were other people in his life that were more important than me. Now, what's interesting about that friend, I ended up running into him in 8th grade, and he was under special needs, and they pretty much had him medicated throughout his youth, which was sad. But, so, I got into 1st grade, and I'll never forget my first day of 1st grade. I was not hanging out at the playground. I'm not doing the recess thing. I was just waiting where my class was supposed to meet up. And I'm the first in line. I was very eager to go to school. I was disappointed that I didn't get to go to preschool because they tested me and they said I was too smart. So I had to wait to go to kindergarten. I remember being really sad in kindergarten too because I didn't know how to adapt to the social interaction. And I wanted my mom, just like any kid would. But so 1st grade, my teacher, which I'll never forget him, he was one of the best teachers I ever had. My older brother had him, and 2 of my younger brothers had him. My little sister missed out on it. But I remember him leaning down, asking me my name. And I told him, and he's like, "It's a pleasure to meet you." And he really turned out to be a big influence and a big caveat to me being an educated person. He taught me chess that year. He read us stories and told us stories about his youth, the troubles he went through, and the some of the things that his brother put him through, and some of the creepy things he went through living in New York at the time he was. There was this creepy cat lady who lived up the way from him, and all the kids had stories about her. And she was pretty much like the equivalent of the Blair Witch for a children's story. She was a crazy cat lady. She had like 60 cats and newspapers stacked everywhere throughout her house. But yeah, I don't remember the whole story when it comes to that, but Second grade, I had a really hard time with acceptance, with being friends with anybody. And I remember having a hardcore breakdown in art class one day and just crying my eyes out, and teacher asked me, "Why are you crying?" And it's because I don't have any friends. And she said, "I bet somebody in your class would want to be your friend." And two people did. It was Brian and Noah. Now, Brian was my friend for the next year, year and a half. And Noah was my friend up through 5th grade. But it's amazing to see how things change throughout the couple of years and how fickle children really are. But second grade, they had me participate in the Shakespeare Festival, and I was the youngest kid to participate in the Shakespeare Festival that year, and or any year at that point. Up to that point, I was 7. So I played the Prince of Verona, and I ended up blowing a lot of people away with my performance. Now I know that I'm not trying to exalt myself in any way, but this is part of what I went through. I learned to retain things. My older brother, he was so good. He knew everybody's lines. He was playing Juliet sometimes when Juliet wasn't at school. And I was always impressed by his performance and the fact that he was always willing to be the convincing, overacting character. And that's really what it takes to be an actor, is to be an overactor, to over-exaggerate your role, to make it convincing. And I guess my role made it so big that we performed at the convention center, and got the spotlight of the newspaper that year or that month. And it was an intense experience, but really it didn't go to my head. I didn't understand what ego was at 7, 8 years old. And so I didn't anticipate the people in school to be my friend because I played this role. I was just hoping they'd like me for me. So moving into 3rd grade, I started getting into guitar classes. I was learning mariachi music from a Korean, which I thought was hilarious. But this is where I first started noticing girls were pretty. And I think this is a huge proponent to where I ended up way further in my future, was those crushes that I had entertained a thought in my head. And it really was infatuation. It was a form of obsession. So, learning guitar, and I think 3rd grade I was Lennox in Macbeth, which only had like 2 lines, so like it wasn't a huge role for me to play. But the next year after that, 4th grade, it's a hard year for me. We were doing Romeo and Juliet again, and I played Romeo, and a girl I had a crush on played Juliet. There was no kissing scenes, you don't have to worry about any of that, but I really did like this girl. I thought she was beautiful, but I was very concerned about being accepted by the people around me. Very concerned with being a part of the group. And there was this kid who wore Jankos all the time. We'd listen to music together, and he started influencing my musical understanding of where people were at that age. You had the people who were into the hip-hop and the people who were into the rock. And I remember 2 of the most popular kids finding out that I had a crush on this girl. And they made fun of me. They caused a lot of problems by spreading things, and it didn't make things easy for me. I was just trying to be me, and they're like, "What kind of music do you listen to?" And I'm like, "I mostly listen to Christian rock." And at 8, 9 9 years old, it's not a very common thing for a child to listen to. 9 was just Christian rock, but that's what I was raised with. Don't get me wrong, I listened to the radio because my mom, but I listened to Petra. I listened to Whiteheart. I listened to Allies and Idle Cure and a lot of the glam metal that came from the 80s, but centralized around Jesus. And the kids didn't like that. They made me feel awful for it. That's actually the year I wrote my first song. And it was very Michael W. Smith influenced, but it was me just playing a guitar. Might have been just G, C, D. And I don't remember the lyrics to it because I had played it and performed it for my class, and the teachers loved it, but the kids ridiculed me for it, and it really discouraged me from continuing to make music. And I guess I just wanted to be accepted. There was this kid, Andrew, who I went to school with, and he became one of my friends, and we ended up performing at the talent show once, and I felt like a moron because I didn't know a single line from the song that we were doing, so I didn't look very intelligent up on stage. But one time, I guess the girl I had a crush on, her friend and her supposed boyfriend at the time, we're fourth graders, so what is a boyfriend at that age, you know, or a girlfriend at that age? I guess there was this accusation going around that I had called the girl I had a crush on and started cussing her out over the phone. Well, clearly it wasn't me because I didn't even have her number, so if something like that did occur, that means somebody else was posing as me and cussing a girl out for no reason. But next day, this kid wanted to fight me, and I'm like, okay, well, I didn't do anything, but let's do this. So we waited till after school. A bunch of kids gathered around. There was this kid I played kickball with who was a fifth grader who, you know, was supporting me. It's funny how kids act. But I ended up kicking the crap out of this kid. I was even using, like, WWF moves, like, and I could have killed him. Because, I mean, I was trained to fight, but also, like, when I found out how weak he was, I wanted to make a show out of it. And I really liked Rey Mysterio at the time, so he liked wrapping his legs around people's necks and doing crazy spin moves, which, you know, hindsight, I could have killed the kid. But I beat him up. One of the popular kids, he's like, you got to tell somebody that this happened or else you're going to get suspended. So I beelined directly to the principal's office, and I walk in, my teacher's there and the principal's there, and I was just honest. As I got in a fight with this kid, and I kind of hurt him, but I don't want to be suspended. And they said, because you were being honest, we're not going to suspend you, but we need to find out all that happened and make sure he's okay. So the next day, I didn't want anything to do with anybody, so I like isolated myself over by the sandbox. And up comes the guy who I had fought the day before. And I'm just thinking to myself, oh no, I'm going to get in a fight again. And he comes up and he apologizes and says he was out of line for doing it and that he shouldn't have trusted in other people's words when it came to this because he regrets what happened. Like, I mean, and getting hurt is a good reason to not want to continue that. But he asked to be my friend after that, and I'll never forget it. And, you know, the next year I ended up getting in a fight with one of my friends, and his friend ended up coming out of nowhere in the middle of the fight and kicking me in the middle of the spine. And so my mom, she wanted me to apply to Denver School of the Arts for 6th grade, and I wasn't prepared for the audition. It was all last second stuff that came together and didn't get me into the school. and I ended up getting homeschooled for 6th grade, which was really kind of hard because I ended up learning how to cheat on my schoolwork, and it's right around the age I started smoking cigarettes, actually. It's crazy when I think about how all these things kind of mesh together. The influence of weed came in, the influence of alcohol, and it really brought me to being so concerned about being cool, being considered cool. And I think that's really what 4th, 5th, and 6th grade did to me, was it told me I wasn't cool, and I had to conform to what was going on around me to be considered cool. It was really wrong. And when I look back on my past and being under spiritual attack the way I had been, you know, in my previous video I had mentioned how I had stayed the night at that friend from church's house and had that vision. Before that vision, I had, like, it might have been before, it might have been after. I don't recall. It was a long time ago. We're talking almost 23 years ago. So I believe I was introduced to the devil, to whoever the beautiful fallen angel was, because it displayed itself as a beautiful creature, a beautiful looking human man, long flowing blonde hair, just perfect jawline, no facial hair, very, very pale. And I'll never forget the robe that he was wearing. It was encrusted, like it was a white robe, but it had like jewels going down it and like rimmed with gold. And there was just decor of jewelry, like not jewelry, but jewels all up and down his robe. And for some reason I knew there was something wrong about this beautiful thing I was staring at. And at that age I shouldn't have known these things. And even before that I had seen shadow figures and things like that in my peripheral and in mirrors and stuff, but I'd never been shown what an angel looked like. But this was not a bright and shiny angel. He looked pretty, but he wasn't divine the way that I now understand what a divine being looks like. And even after that event, I really sought to fit in. I really wanted to be a part of the group and accepted. And it just led me to addiction, cigarettes and weed, and getting drunk, and not caring about my personal growth as a human being. But yeah, I kind of just wanted to tap into that one. It's kind of a harsh story, and I didn't even go into all the details. It's just, there are certain parts about my life that were big moments that defined where I was moving next. And I hope this adds a little bit of clarity with the music aspect of me being discouraged in making my own music and being convinced I had to conform to the music of the world. And how it really did me no good. So, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. This is, I used to be a Juggalo Part 2, and it's really more like a precursor to what I had talked about before. So, thank you for letting me speak into your life. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to comment on my video or contact me through the email address on my videos. I'm always willing to talk about Christ. I'm always willing to talk about where I've been, where we've all been, and why it defined us according to world standards in comparison to God's standards. So I hope this one isn't too choppy, and yeah, thank you. I love you all.